Welcome back. Believe it or not, which party wins control of the House could very well be determined by races in two states that are not your usual battlegrounds, California and New York. Two big blue states where Democrats and Republicans are fighting over a handful of House districts that could decide who controls Congress. NBC's Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitali has more.
I feel like I'm at a pre-mission brief back in my Army days.
This is a different kind of mission for freshman Congressman and Iraq War veteran Pat Ryan.
We won the last time by 1%, 1.3%.
The New York Democrat relying on a reproductive freedom-focused message to keep his seat in this swing district.
It's literally an existential, personal issue of freedom. And if you want to piss off the American people, take their freedom away.
His opponent, Allison Esposito, a former cop.
Campaign doesn't stop with the rain.
Hoping to overtake him by highlighting GOP hot-button issues.
It's crime, public safety, law and order, the economy, the border crisis, the attack on our kids' education. As far as abortion, my opponent wants to make this entire election about abortion. And it's not even a factor in this race. What would you like to see fixed first?
I would like to see a timeline on abortion.
Yeah, but that's funny. Like, we were saying abortion doesn't come up. He cares.
Funny.
New York's 18th congressional district is one of 7 seats here that could decide who controls Congress. In 2022, Democrats lost 5 competitive House races in this blue state, helping Republicans win the majority, including the 17th district, where Republican Mike Lawler bested the head of the House Democratic campaign arm and is now hoping to keep this swing seat red and hold the majority.
Do you guys still deserve it after the last 2 years?
Yeah, I think, look.
It's been pretty chaotic.
Sure, but, you know, at the end of the day, name me one thing Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats have accomplished. Not much.
Former Congressman Mondaire Jones, who's challenging Lawler, disagrees.
What's your unfinished business in Congress?
I'm really proud of the work that I started last term as part of a Congress that was actually pro-choice and pro-democracy and committed to actually delivering for my constituents here in the 17th Congressional District.
In these Hudson Valley races, a swirl of local issues, housing, affordability, and cleaning up the Hudson River, mixed with national flashpoints on immigration, abortion rights, and the economy. A controversial New Yorker on the ballot.
We're going to win New York.
And a traditionally blue state plagued by bad press for big New York Democratic names only adds to the complex landscape.
The statewide Democratic brand here, I think, is pretty toxic. But is Trump's brand better?
It's not a function of whose brand is better. I mean, frankly, you look at Kathy Hochul and Eric Adams, they're a train wreck.
I was among the first people to call for him to resign. Look, unlike Mike Lawler, who never stands up to Donald Trump or anyone else in his party.
Competing messages flooding the airwaves thanks to more than $42 million spent in just these 2 seats alone. Both incumbents trying to tune out the partisan noise and focus on the moderate middle.
There's a reason both Joe Biden and Donald Trump have praised me. It's because I am willing to work across the aisle.
What coalition are you trying to build when you talk about having a bipartisan bill with Mike Lawler and also AOC is campaigning here with you?
I'm trying to get shit done. Like, seriously.
Seriously close races, hinging House control on New York voters' state of mind.
And Ali Vitali is here with more from the big board on those New York races and other races we're watching closely. So, Ali, show us what you're watching when it comes to the fight for control of Congress.
Yeah, because this is a really big map, Gabe, right? We often talk about the swing states for the presidential contest, but we rarely get into just how massive the map gets when you start considering the House. But first, look at the balance of Congress just to hammer home what we were saying in this piece. For Democrats to take control, it just requires them taking 4 seats away from Republicans. Now, we say just requires that as if it's some simple task, but it's why we've seen people like Leader Hakeem Jeffries, but also Speaker Mike Johnson crisscrossing this map, which you look at the way that the balance of power sits right now. I have to say this is one of the more chaotic maps, but it's also the ones that both House campaign committees on the Republican and Democratic side spend a lot of time looking at. But these are the races that they are spending millions in. We were in, of course, 2 of them in New York's 17th and, of course, 18th congressional district. But those aren't even the only seats in New York that we're watching closely. You have, of course, New York's 19th congressional district, where Republican Mark Molinaro is facing yet another rematch against Josh Riley. That's the district just above where Congressman Pat Ryan is. And then you start broadening out the map itself. You look at some of these key races in Pennsylvania, specifically around the Allentown area. That's one where Congresswoman Susan Wild is playing defense as a Democrat, trying to stave off a Republican that could encroach on Democrats' attempts to take back the majority. But then you look at the fact that this map goes not just New York, not just Pennsylvania, but all the way across. Of course, California is one that we rightly talk about a lot. But Alaska is one that I am really paying attention to closely. It's a place where I spent some time in 2022. And you had sort of a two-pronged effort here for the Democrat to be able to take this seat away from Republicans, in part because Congresswoman Mary Peltola is a bipartisan kind of Democrat, but then also because they've got a ranked choice voting system there that in 2022 allowed this three-person race to tilt towards the Democrat because two Republicans were still running, Sarah Palin, you've heard of her, and of course Nick Begich, who is now the only Republican that is back on the ballot challenging Mary Peltola here. When you have places like Alaska on the map for something that could decide control of Congress, it also gets a little dicey on the timing front because you know that it takes a longer time for Alaska to report in its ballots, not just because they do a ranked choice voting system, but because the state itself is so rural and vast, most of these voters are voting by mail. But it does give you a reminder, of course, also places like New Mexico. We spent some time there most recently with Congressman Gabe Vasquez, the Democrat incumbent, but also because Congressman Hakeem Jeffries was out there trying to stump for him. This is the kind of math that they are doing on a very granular county by county, district by district level to try to claw back seat by seat for Democrats to take back the gavel. But you look at how close it is again, and it's just a reminder that it really could end up being just a matter of 4 seats that could either flip this thing or leave it exactly as it is. And we, you and I both, on both sides of Pennsylvania Avenue, have watched the reality of a Congress that is this divided at the House level.
Yeah, certainly, Ali, a lot to look at these last 2 weeks. By the way, I really like how you just threw in there that, oh, you know, you've been to Alaska, you've been to New Mexico.
This was a really big state to tick off the list, I have to tell you. It was hard to get out to Alaska.
Ali Vitali at the big board, channeling her inner Steve Kornacki. Ali, thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.